Hey everybody, I am Stacy. I'm the owner and artist of New Creations by Stacy. And give me a sec here, I'm just gonna make sure that we are live. I've been having some technical difficulties today and, oh perfect, here we are. All right, so we are here. As you are jumping on, just say hey where you're watching from. We should have Dixie Belle with us tonight as well to help answer any questions. In the description, I'm a little off today, you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm on an hour earlier. I kind of messed up the time slot a little bit. So tonight and next Monday, I'll be on at 5 Central Standard Time, 6 Eastern Standard Time. Hey, Nikki. So we'll go ahead and get started. Before we do that, in the description, I do have my affiliate link if you need to purchase any items online. Also, you can find your local retailer there. If you are a local retailer as well, definitely put your store and your location so that anybody watching in that area can find you and come in if you want to get your hands on the product. Also, I am an elite retailer here in Ardmore, Alabama at the Rustic Willow, as well as I still have my location in Madison. And then also in the description, I do have all, hey Wanda, I have all the products that we'll be using tonight. We're going to be doing some waxing with the Best Dang Wax as well as the Gilding Wax. And we're going to be using some Moonshine Metallics that I've mixed up. Probably forgot to say something here, but just in case, I'll slip it in as we go along. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I set everything up and then I thought I was live and I wasn't live, and which is a good thing because I wasn't prepared to be. Hey, Thelma. So Thelma's local, as well as Wanda here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring you guys in and drop you down so that you guys can have a close-up of the area that we're going to be working on. So on this piece, I pretty much got the piece done except for this side over here. I just want to make sure that you have a good view and bring it down a little bit more. All right, perfect. Oh, hey, Dixie Belle. Oh, hey, NTS Design. I see you on. All right, so here we go. So we're going to start off by doing some stripes. And we are doing the stripes in a mix of Moonshine Metallics Gold Digger and also the... Now, I'm almost embarrassed to show this jar, but we're also going to be using the bronze patina paint. So I mixed those up because I wanted kind of an aged brass look, which is what you see up here. And so you can see the difference. I've got my little spoon where I mixed it up here. It's just a very slight difference. There's kind of a glare on it from the metallic, so it's really kind of hard to see. But you'll see in the center there, that's where I've got kind of the more brass color instead of the bronze. And that does help to thicken up the Moonshine Metallics a little bit as well. And what I've done, it's about 3 parts of the Gold Digger to maybe like a half a part of the bronze patina paint. I don't ever measure. I just kind of mix up until I see what I'm looking for. Oh, thanks, Teresa. All right, so this is kind of how it looks once it's mixed up. So you can see here, and it's kind of hard to tell with the metallics on camera. And I've kind of got my stripes started across here, and I've actually lost my tape. Oh, right behind me. But I wanted to go ahead and put on the last few sections with you guys so you can just kind of see how to do that. I've also got, like I said, I thought I was going on at 6 as usual, but I'm actually on at 5 here. And so I didn't quite get as many coats as I wanted across here so that we could finish up and I could take that off. But we might just have to come back to it after we wax. So whenever I put on my tape, this is kind of my marker piece so that I can make sure that my tape is straight and evenly spaced. So I just kind of put that in the next slot. And then I'm just going to add these sections on. So this is kind of why I pre-taped it off as well. Just so you could kind of see how to put your tape on. But not so that you just watch me for 15 minutes put tape on. So in this situation, because of the way that I'm running these stripes, I just started on the side and came across because of the way these middle drawers are done. But so for example, on the middle drawer, I actually started my tape in the center and then worked my way out because I knew I wanted gold on both sides since this stopped at the clear. If you are looking to be really symmetrical, I would always suggest starting in the middle. But in this case, we are, and I actually don't even need that last piece because I'm just going to line it up to the edge of my trim. And I just kind of want to make sure it's a little bit straight. Sometimes your trim is not always straight. So it's kind of tricky there. So I also want to make sure that I kind of burnish down this inside section so that I don't have really any bleed through up there by the corner. And then I'm just going to rub down the sides of the tape so that I don't have a lot of bleed through, so I have nice straight lines. So to start painting this, I'm actually going to be using the angle brush. And you can see I put, there's still a little bit on here. I just kind of misted it off with my mister brush. I'm just checking the comments to make sure there's nothing here. So this does go on pretty thin and it's going to be really streaky at first. What I'm doing is just kind of offloading my brush before I go up into where it meets the trim up here, so that way I can have a nice clean line up there. And usually with metallic paints, I'm kind of off to the side a little bit so you guys can see. You want to generally go in one direction so that your metallic flakes just lay down and they don't go back and forth. Otherwise it won't quite look as metallic, or you can get it a little bit streaky. Which, the way that I'm putting these coats on, I'm okay with it being a little bit streaky because this is more of an aged, elegant look. But at the same time, I'm also putting on so many coats that it's pretty, you can see from the top that it's pretty opaque. I actually am doing 4 quick coats on here. I'm a very thin painter though, and I spread out my paint quite a bit. So normally I would probably say you would only need about 2 or 3 coats of this. It just depends on what you want for your liking. But you can see how thin I spread my paint. And what I'm doing on the bottom here, since I didn't tape this off, I'm just twisting my brush so that this point right here from my angled brush is right at the bottom, and I'm just dragging it across. I've made sure that the tips of my bristles, the paint is already offloaded for the most part, so that way I'm not getting a lot of bubbles or bleed through. So we're gonna come over here and I'm gonna do another coat on here. So I could have taped off this edge as well, but there really wasn't a need for me to. Because that's just one straight line. So what I want to do to get that line, I've offloaded my brush a little bit. I'm resting my hand and I'm just dragging my paintbrush down. So that way it keeps the line pretty straight when you're not lifting up. And I just need to kind of get into this corner a little bit. You can also push your paint down. So if you set your brush up a little higher, which I can't really see, I can push my paint down into that crack And that's another way to get that nice clean line. So I'm just quickly going through here. So you can see how much the coverage is picking up on this third coat. I'm going across at the bottom so I can get an easy straight line. Because I'm kind of at an awkward angle because I want to stay out of the way of the camera. But I'm just kind of pushing my paint up into the top. And Dixie Belle does now have the art brushes. So we do have the angled brush here. It comes in a pack of 4. And it's perfect to use for this project. Like I said, you could tape this off so that way you don't have to worry about this line. I've also got this protected, so this is satin, but I also have it protected with 2 coats of satin over it. I think I might have said it was satin. Sorry, it's silk paint. So the silk paint has built-in protectant as well as a stain blocker. So I did not have to protect this with satin first, but I did because I wanted my wax that we're going to be doing here in a minute. I wanted that to be really movable and pliable. So I wanted to go ahead and give that coat of satin over it. But as a result, so this works a little bit with silk, but the protectant isn't exactly the same as using something like a satin. But, so as a result, if I would accidentally just paint right there, get a streak of paint, I could just take a baby wipe or something like that and just wipe it right off. So I'm not actually sure. So actually I just did that right down here. And because it's not sinking in, I can just take this baby wipe. I'm going to use my fingernail and I can wipe that right off. So you can't even tell it's there. Oh, thank you, Joyce. So the middle drawers, those are actually, it's a raised stencil with the damask, the royal damask. And so I did the second coat pretty quickly over this. So I'm going to go ahead and do a second coat over here as well. But that's a raised stencil with the royal damask. And then after, I did it prior to painting it with the Dixie mud. And then after, I went ahead and took a sponge and I just put the stencil back over it and took a makeup brush and just went through and gave it kind of a distressed look. And then I will be going it back over it with a little bit of Gilding Wax in gold because this is all highlighted. So the reason I'm doing that right there is because my patina paint was kind of chunky. I paint out of the jar and the lid's been off for too long and I'm to the bottom. So every once in a while, I will get a little streak of bronze. So I'm just kind of blending it in. And that's been the same with all of them. You can tell it really doesn't affect it any. So after we finish these last 2 stripes, we'll go ahead and move on. So this piece is actually done with a mix of white cap and sandcastle to get this nice antique white. And then I did a blend of Hampton Olive in with it. So that's what's given it some of the shading. It's very, very light. And I love it because the Hampton Olive actually kind of gave me a brown look mixed in with the, blended with the sandcastle and the white cap. So I've just got this last little bit here with the stripes. And we're gonna do some waxing. I'll come back down here and I'll do the last coat on a couple of these over here, and then we'll go ahead and take off the tape so you can see what it looks like. Oh, thank you, Judy. It is a custom piece, Joyce. Actually, let me go ahead and mist down my brush. So actually a few months ago, I did a piece like this in silver, and the final pictures are on my page. They're a little bit down in the timeline, but you can go to photos. I did a silver piece like this, and that generated this custom bedroom set. I've actually got a highboy that goes with it that's completely done over here. So we'll go ahead and take a rest on that. So I'm also waxing this, and so I'm using the Besting wax, but the brown sometimes is a little bit red, and to me, I don't know, it gives it kind of reminds me of like a clay-like tone sometimes when it's over whites. When it's over gray, I really like it, but when I go over whites, I always feel like it gives me like a clay look. So I've actually custom mixed some wax. Oh, hey, Karen, how are you? Okay, so for this aged brass look, I literally took 3 plastic spoonfuls of the gold in Moonshine Metallics, and then I took a stir stick. And I'm almost embarrassed to show you this because it's just going to show you how bad my bronze is, how chunky it is. But I just dipped the stir stick in, stirred up the patina paint, the bronze patina paint, and then I just put this stir stick into my gold and stirred it up. So that's really what it is. But it's about, I would say it's about half a spoonful of the bronze to about 3 spoonfuls of the gold. So this actually is brown and black wax mixed together, and it kind of comes out more like coffee bean as far as the color goes. And then we're also going to be using some black wax. And I'm going to go ahead and pop you up. So just to give you an idea too, this line out right here, this is 1 coat of this aged brass color. That's what I'm calling it, the aged brass color. And so it's just 1 coat up here, so you can see how thin it is still. I'm actually going over that with gold gilding wax, and it gives it a nice kind of two-tone effect. So I really like how that's turning out as well, and we're going to get to that. So for the wax, I'm actually using just a natural bristle art brush. It's a flat one. And then I'm also going to be using the La Petite. I'm taking a rest, just finished the wedding of the year. And wow. White and gold, everything we designed. Oh, that's a lot, Judy. I can't even, I've never planned a wedding, and I can't even imagine. All right, so we're just going to go ahead. We're going to start off with the black. You can see I'm just putting a little bit on here. I want to pretty much just line this out. So I'm putting it on pretty heavy, just in these areas. I'm not lining everything out with the black because I just, you know, I like a layered look on everything. I just feel like it gives your piece a lot more depth. So I'm just kind of lining out some of these edge areas. Let's go under here a bit. And this doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be wiping it back. But I really just want it lined out. I don't want to wax the whole piece. I just want to use this for some additional shading. Because this is silk, it doesn't blend the same. Well, they say most of the time you hear you can't blend it. And it is, I mean, it is touchy. It's not as easily blended. But I do love kind of the streakiness that it creates with the silk when you're blending. So it doesn't quite give you the same overall effect though. So I'm using this wax just to kind of age it a little bit, as well as to kind of enhance that shading that I was able to create with the Hampton Olive. So we're just putting this. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my brown and black, and I'm using the same brush, so it's going to mix up a little bit more. So I've been using this quite a bit, and it's kind of hard over here. I like to use that hard part to really get into these recessed areas. Also, when I'm going across here, I do have some texture created from these stripes, as well as from my raised stencil. And you'll see once we get down here, I love how the wax kind of hangs up on the edges. Creates a really nice effect that gives you a lot more dimension as well. But I'm just continuing to line this out. Kind of completely forgot this section up here. So I'm going to go back to my black a little bit. There's no rhyme or reason for this. I'm just kind of adding it in different places. It's not the same every time on every drawer. I just want to make sure that all of my recesses are done. So I think I pretty well have it all over here. Now I'm going to take my La Petite right here, and I'm going to put some onto the tip of the brush. You can see how it's all chunky, how it's in one place. I like to kind of, oh yes, definitely Judy. Hey, Jerry. So I like to take my lid or a paper plate or something, and I need to start using a paper plate because I've used this lid so much. But I didn't get one out, but I just kind of spread it around so now it's not all in one spot on my brush. And I'm going to shade in kind of these recessed areas. And at first, when I'm in this edge right here, I want it a little bit darker, so I'm putting a little more pressure on my wax brush. And as I'm coming out, I'm laying up on the pressure so it starts to get lighter. So you can see this spot right here is a lot darker than right here, which on camera you can barely even tell that that's done, but there is some shading on there as well. So then we're just going to take the rag and we're going to start wiping this back. So I've got my finger kind of in here, and I'm continuously moving to a clean section unless I want to do some shading. So right now, I'm cleaning that up a little bit more, but I'm leaving it kind of in the dirty section. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but it's shading out now. It's softening up that line, and it's creating a nice shade out effect. So it just doesn't, the line just doesn't end. It softens up and changes into that next color. So I'm still on the dirty spot, and I'm rubbing up into a few more sections to really shade out that drawer. But now I'm going to go ahead and turn it to a clean spot because I want to make sure where it's curved out that I have a more clean look to it. Because that's where you would see the highlights with the lighting. And you would see those low lights kind of where it was recessed a little bit. Just want to soften that up, but keep that nice sharp detail right there. Hopefully you can see it. So I've got a lot of excess here. I'm just going to get some of that off. And I'm rubbing kind of hard here because I really want to lighten up that edge a little bit. Just move into a clean spot. So now let's say if I really, really wanted to take this off completely, I could also come in with a clear wax and just completely erase that back, especially since I have this satin on here. So if I did not have this satin on here, silk is not quite as porous as like the chalk mineral paint. If you do this on chalk mineral paint, it's so porous, it's just going to sink right down in. Actually, I want to add a little bit on here, and I'm going very light because I don't want to actually shade my paint, but I want to catch the edges of my stripes to really highlight those. And then I'm going to rub all of this off. It doesn't really come off the stripes all the way though, because there's recesses created from the texture from the stripes. Just want to go a little bit darker over here. I'm going to take that off. And I'm very lightly rubbing here, so it's just kind of smoothing it out, but leaving that shading. I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but it's very subtle and it creates a beautiful shade out here. Also, on this aged brass look I've got going on around here, it has also caught some of the wax. So, oh, thank you, Judy. It's also caught some of the wax, so it's getting a little more depth itself. All right, so we've got this. Let me just make sure. All right, perfect. So that's exactly kind of where I want this. So we'll go ahead. Let's go ahead and paint. Well, you guys see how the stripes look. I'm not going to take you through painting another coat. We've only got about 15 minutes left. And I definitely want to get to the gilding wax. Let's go ahead and do another drawer right quick. I can speed it along a little bit. I just may not talk quite as much. And you guys, if I'm missing any questions or anything like that, I will definitely go back and answer them after the live. You know, and if you have questions, it doesn't have to pertain to this topic specifically. I'm happy to answer anything. So while there's no rhyme or reason to how I'm putting this on, I do tend to stay darker where I have edges. That was a little bit much, but I do tend to start darker where I have like corners or in lower areas, something I really want highlighted. So I'm going to switch over now to my brown and black mix. You know, another really neat thing you can do too is I've mixed this up pretty well, my brown and black mix, but you can actually put your waxes together and not quite mix them up as well, and that'll give you, like sometimes I have a problem with being random, but that will give you a more random look as well. But you can tint your waxes with paint too. If you want a wax color that, you know, we don't carry, or, you know, like one time I did a navy blue wax. I was doing some kind of funky chairs. It takes just a drop of paint, literally. For the amount of wax that I have here, you would literally use a drop of paint. Just gonna bring that through. Trying to go quickly because I want to make sure that we get to this last steps with the gilding wax. And let's get over here. I don't think we're going to get to do the feet like I had planned. This time always goes by so quickly. So I think I've got everything lined out. Oh yeah, peony wax. I've done that once before, so long ago. So Thelma asked what the difference between the Moonshine Metallics, the Gilding Wax, and the Gemstone Mousse are. So the Moonshine Metallics are water-based. So the Gilding Wax is oil-based. So that's one thing. It's not a soap and water cleanup. Also, it's a wax. So, for example, if I wanted a nice clean line, I am not... So, by the way, this is catching all of my wax on its edges. So, it's really giving these a nice highlight, really making them stand out. Now, I forgot what I was saying with the question. Sorry. Water-based versus oil-based. Wax, you're not going to get a super clean line with typically, or I can't, I should say. It's more of, it's a wax. It just doesn't go on like a paint. So that's why I use this to get a straight line, more like a solid straight line as well. And then when I go over it with the gilding wax, it's not the same opaqueness throughout, but you can't tell because I have this one little underlay. With the Gemstone Mousse, it's water-based. It goes on more like a paint. And I could have actually used it for this. I could have mixed it with the bronze patina paint as well because they're both water-based. But I didn't want to, the reason, by the way, that I didn't do that is I didn't want it to be that thick. The gold in the Gemstone Mousse is kind of thick. You can thin it out with water. But I wanted a nice thin, kind of paint to go on. Just really smooth like. Most of the time I do use the Gemstone Mousse for something like this though. Most of the time. It has, another difference is the Gemstone Mousse has better coverage than the Moonshine Metallics. The Moonshine Metallics are more intended for like, if I was going to paint this whole piece in gold, it's a great, you wouldn't want to do that with the mousse. But I do, I like the Moonshine Metallics for stripes. I really do. Just want to watch my time because I want to make sure that we have time to get to the gilding wax. But because I know you've used the Best Dang Wax, and you can put it on like a paint. Gilding wax kind of is the same way. It's a wax, so it doesn't go on just that nice smoothness like a paint. So that's one reason why I don't use it to line out. But you can use it for stripes too. So I could have mixed the bronze and the gold gilding wax to make to do those stripes as well. And the gilding wax is actually really nice for stripes and stenciling. I've actually went over on the other piece, and I'll end up doing it on this piece as well, going over the stencils to give them the same effect as the stripes with the gilding wax. The only stencil I wouldn't necessarily use it with, and I'm probably doing more than answering your question, but Probably the only stencil that I would not use it with would be like a silk screen stencil, because I just don't think it would clean out of there very well. That's why I've never tried it. And you know, those are only good for so many uses. So I don't know. I've kind of been curious to try it, but I want to wait until I'm kind of at the end of my silk screen stencils. And I use mine for a long time. I continue to use them after the recommended amount of times. And I've been able to. So I've just got some more shading on here. Let me make sure I've gotten everything off. So I think that's good. So it takes about 15 to 20 minutes for this wax to totally set up too. So I've got this off. So I'll show you what I did really quickly up here. I don't want to go all the way through it because I do like to let this wax sit on a little bit, like the besting wax sit on for a little while normally before I do this step. But I'll kind of show you just what I did and kind of how that looks. Except for I forgot to get something out to open my little, here we go. So this is the gold gilding wax. And the other one that I'm using is the bronze gilding wax. But for these portions right here, I'm actually just using my finger. You can see that I love the gold gilding wax. I've used quite a bit of it, but it goes a long ways. So I'm just going through here and darkening this up. So like if I see spots where the coverage isn't very good, and I put it, I'm not going to stand up to put it on the top there. I just want to give you guys an idea of kind of how it changes. So I'm not sure you can tell, but it's really, I'll show you here so you can really get an idea of the change. So you can see how opaque that kind of becomes, but I still have like some of that. It makes it look kind of aged and layered on, and a few spots with that aged brass color underneath of it. But that's just what I'm doing for those portions. I also am doing the hardware in the gilding waxes. And I'm using the bronze. So you can kind of see what that looks like, the bronze. And then I'm doing some gold highlights as well. Let's see. So let's see here. So I have brushes that I really don't wash. They're pretty much designated for my gilding waxes. So for the hardware, and so I cleaned this with White Lightning, rinsed it with water. I really prefer to clean my hardware. Well, I could have restored them using like boiling vinegar, but I didn't really want to because I'm using the bronze and gold, and I really can't stand doing that, to be honest, because I can't stand the smell of boiling vinegar. But I really like to clean my hardware with Barkeeper's Friend, but I'm out, and the White Lightning works as well. So that's what I use to clean these with. So what I'm doing here is I'm just scrubbing this bronze into the hardware. So this hardware is kind of rough, so it's the perfect palette for the gilding wax. If you have super shiny, smooth hardware, usually something like that I will paint first, and then I'll put some gilding wax highlights over it. Because that's super shiny hardware. If you put gilding wax on it, it doesn't look the same to me. I can always tell the difference. So on those pieces, I like to, you could slick stick it and paint it. You could spray it. And then I like to just do some highlights with it. But we're just going to get the rest of this on. What I'm trying to do with this bronze is really scrub it down into all the grooves, because that's where I want my lowlights to be. So normally I would, because I'm live, I'm not doing this. So normally I would let this sit a little bit, maybe about 12 hours, and then you can buff it. Hold on here. You can buff it. It'll give it that nice shiny, shiny look. It'll bring it from that dull to shiny again. And then once this is dry a little bit though, that's when I normally like to go back and put my next color on. So we're just going to highlight with my finger some of this gold on here. So hopefully, sometimes metallics don't always show up really well on camera. So I'm just very lightly brushing my finger across it to make that show up. Just get some on the other side here. So like I said, this looks really nice and shiny, but a lot of times I do go back and buff it, because I feel like once it dries, it's kind of loses some of that luster. But to buff it, I just use the same white back rags I was using for the Gilding Wax. I use these right here, and I'll just go once it's dry and kind of rub it all over it to get it in. But you guys can see how this will, if I can get it in the hole there, how that will end up looking on here. But that's it. You see a close-up so you can kind of see the gold highlights over the bronze. And this is how it looked originally. So you can kind of see the difference. Sometimes it's hard to tell unless they're side by side, but look how easy that was to transform that with the Gilding Wax. All right, so I really wanted to, oh, thanks, Judy. I really wanted to go into a little bit more and get a little bit more done on here, but my fingers need to wipe those off. But, so the biggest difference too is that with this Gilding Wax, it's not soap and water cleanup because it's oil-based. I've heard some people say you can clean it with oil. I still haven't tried it yet. I use mineral spirits. And I also, nice tip before I go, I use mineral spirits. You don't have to use this brand. You can use any brand. You can get it at Lowe's, Home Depot, any hardware store really. But I had that out because sometimes whenever you're doing this with your finger, if you touch another spot, you saw how, well, they still are, how gold they are. So if you get Gilding Wax or something somewhere else, instead of being able to just wipe it off like with like a wet paper towel, a water paper towel, you actually need to use mineral spirits to get it off. If you just try to wipe it back like this, even with the satin protectant, it doesn't come off. But you can completely take it off with mineral spirits as long as it's still wet. But thank you guys so much. Thanks, Amber. Oh, thank you, Dixie Bow. But thank you guys so much for hanging out tonight. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. If you know anyone who could use this video, please share it. I do have my Facebook link in the description as well. You can like and follow me on Facebook. I will have pictures of these finished after Christmas. I actually have a ton of pictures coming after Christmas. Almost everything I'm working on is a Christmas present right now. So, not for me, for other people. But so this one's actually going out right at the end of the week. So, but thanks again, you guys, and take care. Thanks, Thelma. Thelma has been instrumental. So when I did the silver piece, she came over. I was in the garage and she came over to drop off some stuff. And we were debating on design ideas. So she was definitely here and had the idea as well for us going with stripes at the bottom. So she definitely has helped a lot here. Thank you. You guys take care. Have a good night.